Hey everyone, welcome back to my next video. It's been quite a while since I've actually done any sort of painting or speed paint on camera, so I thought I would give it a go doing a value study. So for those of you who are unsure what that means, basically it's a black and white painting working from reference, so in this case photo reference, trying to match the values or trying to match the black and whites. So this is within the art fundamentals to learn, and it's pretty important to get the hang of before you start going towards colour or trying to understand colour theory. So before we get any further and before I forget, please do subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton as a small YouTuber. And of course, make sure you hit the like button and switch notifications on. As well as that, I will put links to my social media in the description box below, so you can check out more of my scribbles if you are interested. You might have noticed at the beginning of this, I actually started with basically 3 greys. I tried to keep it as basic as possible just to block in some shapes. So what I mean by that is I think I started with like a mid-tone grey, a darker grey and a lighter grey. And yet eventually I'm pushing these a little bit further and getting greys that are in the shades between those. But you're always advised to start quite basic. I even switched my pen pressure off so that I couldn't get ahead of myself and start putting in detail. It's also advised that you zoom quite far out when you're doing these kind of studies, or at least to begin with. Quite a good way to go about it. So this doesn't look like I'm super zoomed out. I see some people working like a tiny thumbnail, but I am working on a Wacom Cintiq 13 HD screen, so it's quite small, so fitting this on there you can imagine it's even smaller. And early on in the video I wasn't really liking how this was looking at all. In fact, I very nearly gave up and didn't bother finishing this because I was so bummed out by it, let's say. I had some of the features in place, but some of it just looked really weird. Some things were a little bit off, and it was just starting to look a bit deformed, to be honest. Especially around like the eyes and the forehead area. But I am glad that I kept going with it because I kept tweaking it. Some of it on camera, some of it off camera between clips. And luckily it managed to click in place a little bit. I got a little bit more likeness, which made me a bit more determined to get this finished. I started liking how it was going. So I am working from reference as mentioned. So I think it's a screenshot from the new series. And oh yeah, I forgot to actually mention, if you're unaware of what this is a screenshot of Obi-Wan Kenobi from the new Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Hopefully a lot of you guys will recognise it. It's a pretty big thing, I guess. Should have probably mentioned what I was drawing at the beginning. But yeah, you'll notice that throughout a lot of it, I stay zoomed out. It's only at like the halfway point that I actually started to zoom in and put in a little bit more detail. To be honest, I was still probably a little bit early with this. I think anyone who is a better artist than me would have got a little bit further with it from the zoomed out state first. Honestly, I was just getting a little bit bored and wanted to start putting in some details. I think it was the hair or the beard details that I zoomed in to start with. And you'll see I also have some grids on the screen, or some guides, whatever you want to call them. So I've broken this down into different squares. I did the same thing on my reference, so yeah, you might say it's cheating, I'm not sure. This was more a value study than anything else, and honestly, I find getting the likeness of people extremely difficult, so I'm sort of happy to start at this lower level, at least until I'm better. If I hadn't have put these on, the character would not have been recognisable. And painting is definitely not my strong point. I really enjoy sketching, doodling. I don't mind adding colour, I find it quite difficult, but I find realistic paintings like this really difficult. I just find that I get quite fed up and bored because they're quite time consuming, but each to their own. But yeah, I'd rather work on things that I enjoy more, and I'm not very painterly for the most part. And in terms of how to get these grids on screen, I will make another tutorial just showing you how to do that quickly. It's quite simple to do. So for those of you that are interested, make sure you check out my other videos. So I really wanted to focus on getting the values right and also making the character recognisable, actually looking like Obi-Wan. But I didn't intend to take it quite as far as I did. I kind of had to because it wasn't looking like him initially. But you will see, especially at the end, that I really didn't render it all the way. So his beard, his neck, his hair, and even his clothing is very unfinished, very blocky. I'm sure I could have gone in and done a little bit more detail, but honestly, I was pretty bored with it by that point, losing the motivation, and I was pleased with how it came out anyway. So at the time of me painting this, there has been 3 episodes released for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Do let me know in the comments below if you're a fan of this, what you think to it so far. Obi-Wan Kenobi was always one of my favourite characters from the Star Wars series. which is why I kind of felt a bit more motivated to stick with this and give it a go. As mentioned, I do keep adding to it a little bit off camera. I did try to record most of it though, but you might notice the odd subtle bit change. And in terms of brushes, you might have noticed already, I pretty much stuck with the basic hard round brush in Photoshop throughout. So nothing fancy. I don't think that helped me really. I think if I'd have used a bit of brush with texture, the whole thing would have looked much better, but I just couldn't be bothered looking through my brushes at the time. However, you can see that I did get a brush that was like a skin pack brush. It's one I've had saved for loads of years, so I don't really know where I got it from, but it's basically like a speckled effect. I didn't spend very long using it, as you could probably tell, but I did put a little bit just on his cheeks, his nose, and around his forehead. I probably went a bit over the top as well, but when you zoomed out, it just adds a little bit of texture to it. And the intention with something like this is usually to start with a big brush, and then as you get to the end of it and you start adding more details, so in this case his beard and his hair, you would then start lowering your brush size and start adding in some more details. So for me, I can definitely see areas that are lacking, especially in his wrinkles and creases like that. I have been a bit lazy there. But this is as far as I wanted to take it. And if you see this as a larger image compared to a smaller image, you're definitely going to see the lack of details more. Yet here I am showing it full screen. So that's it guys. As mentioned before, you can find my social media links in the description box below. If you did enjoy this video, please do subscribe, hit that like button, and make sure you switch notifications on for future content.